Hi everyone, my name is Debbie Rigaud. I am a YA author and middle grade author as well. And I am so delighted and excited to be here with you today discussing using humor to unpack tough topics in Kid Lit. This is something that I do in my writing, and so I just wanted to bring you along for the ride, share with you some of my influences, and read you some excerpts, and hopefully, this will be helpful to you. But first, before we get started, let's say what's up to Fresh Prince because Zoomers are loving this 90s sitcom star. And this 90s sitcom character is having a resurgence. And this show uses a lot of humor to unpack tough topics from time to time. And so I thought this would be a great intro and maybe cause you to smile there. All right, so this first slide is really just an acknowledgement that you are not alone in wondering, am I just funny to me? Like, we know we write what makes us laugh and what we find funny, we write. So it's really great to get the acknowledgement that, yeah, this is working and your humor is hitting, your jokes are landing. You get to find this out first through beta readers. And also, obviously, your editor lets you know. And it's also a cherry on top when reviewers read the book and the reviews come out with, that acknowledgement as well. So my book, Simone Breaks All the Rules, is a YA and that came out a little under 2 months ago. It's about a girl who has overprotective parents and who's trying to break out of their overprotective cocoon and be the social butterfly by the time she graduates and goes to the prom. So Kirkus called it, well, they said that the book has perfect comedic timing. And when I saw that, I was like, what? Oh my gosh, like major acknowledgement there. And also, Publishers Weekly said it's a delightfully funny narrative. And my Once Upon a Time agent, Adrian, let's shout out to Adrian, said she described my writing as comedy with a conscience. And obviously, she means, with literature, it's more so humor writing than comedy. You don't obviously get, people falling out of their seats, rolling on the floor. I mean, at least I don't get that. Um, but it's more of like, stand-up comedians would get that. For humor writing, I would imagine more of a chuckle or a smile, and that is like, yes, I'll take it. I will take it. Um, so a little bit about my influences. I, like Simone, am a Haitian American, and I get a lot of inspiration from my family. My family is so funny. They are really dramatic with the oral storytelling. It's particularly my grandmother, just pulls you into her stories. This is a picture of my grandmother's sister, Cecile, having a little laugh there. Very facetious, most likely very ironic laugh. But I always wondered, like, why don't people know how hilarious Haitians are? I mean, we're known for everything negative under the sun, but I always wanted to kind of like drive home the fact that, we're some of the funniest people on the planet. And so my influences in my humor writing definitely comes from that. I would observe my mom and my aunt, especially when they laugh. Like they would have this laugh, like hand on the hip, shoulders hunched, wincing, squinting, looking like they're like itching scratching some emotional itch somewhere deep down. And they'd be like, let me see if I could do it, like something like and I would sit at their feet and watch and be like, I cannot wait to laugh like that one day. One day. I knew I just didn't have the experience or the wisdom to like attain that at that moment, but like I knew like one day. And so it was like they had a secret. And what I'm learning is like, their laughter was a shared secret. That secret being, you are your problems are temporary, but you are eternal. And it's a major coping thing among Haitians, at least Haitians in my family, that are dealing with one blow after another. Whatever comes at you, it's not as eternal as you are. It's a temporary thing. It's not eternal. You are eternal. And so that was one of those secrets that was embedded in that laughter. And also, I was a huge hip hop fan, great storytelling in a lot of the hip hops from back in the day, especially. And so, all of this led me to sort of have in my writing have liberal use of metaphors and similes and non-traditional word uses to sort of construct my story in a way where I can get the timing right with the humor, as close to right, hopefully. I have a great editor. So and here's olive oil, and she is seared in my memory because of this one moment where my mom used humor to break tension. So this is something she did a lot. I have a complainy dad. God bless him. He's awesome, but he is a complainy dad. And she would use humor to ease the tension of those moments, which happen quite frequently a lot, sometimes. And one such moment I will never forget. My mom is an OR nurse, worked the late shift some nights and didn't drive, but my dad would drive out to pick her up in the city. And I went along for the ride this one time. She came out after her colleagues, and my dad noted that. Every time somebody came out that wasn't her, he noted it. And when she got in the car, he, without any greeting or anything, just started complained everything, about everything he was saying to me about how late she was and why it takes her so long to come out and change from her scrubs and come out. And I was sitting in the back seat and I could see her profile. And when there was a pause in his complaints, she said, "If I'd have known that you would complain this much, I would have made the back of my heel touch the back of my head and taken the subway." And instantly, that tension of me thinking, oh my God, are they going to come argue all the way to Jersey? Like, this is awkward. I'm stuck in this car with them. Gone. Like, all the tension gone, and it kind of snapped me out of that fearful, that kind of tense state. And, with that humor breaking, being the dividing line between me and that tense state, I was able then to go back and assess the situation with a clearer mind, a less tense mind. And I feel like that is a great way to great tool to use with your readers. I mean, you might be a reader yourself that is like self-censored or maybe not in the mood for tough hitting topics, but here's an awesome way to get to those tougher corners with humor. And so humor writing offers a connection point to characters, plus it provides comic relief in the face of something that's scary, like feeling like a social pariah of society, like a lot of marginalized people feel growing up. They relate to this feeling. A friend of mine used to call it feeling like a human fart. When there's a sense that people think the worst of you or society thinks the worst of you, this is stressful. And so you can have the comedy, the humor come in to break up some of that stress that you feel. It also provides light in dark spaces where it can illuminate the thorns in a thorny issue, thereby on some level dulling the fear of getting pricked. So humor also calls attention to or builds awareness of what lurks in the dark and teaches the reader in a memorable way. And social commentary is another way that I use humor because it's subversive and it shows the contradictions in society to underscore our need to change it. Now, obviously, this is my messaging. This is the messaging that I often come back to sometimes to sprinkle it through the writing, through my love stories or my coming of age stories. But your messaging can be vastly different, totally different, but these tools still apply. These tools will still get you there to arrive into when you're trying to convey whatever message that you are trying to convey to the reader. So I'm going to read an excerpt for each one of these to just sort of illustrate my point. And the first excerpt is going to cover comic relief. So I'm reading it from Simone Breaks All the Rules. Simone introduces a scene is where Simone introduces herself to a crush on the bus, Gavin, for the first time. So remember that social pariah feeling? Well, here goes. She's just told him her very French name, Simone Thibodeau. Yeah, I say, it's French. The last part I say out of pure nervousness. You Asian? Yes. I smile with pride, even as my chin juts up defensively. Here it comes. This is usually the point where people come at me with nauseating remarks about Haiti. As Mummy explains it, folks search for reasons to feel better about the scorn they harbor for people. My toes dig into the soles of my shoes. Please don't ruin this moment for me, Gavin. Be the difference. I almost want to plug fingers into my ears or change the subject fast. Whatever keeps his juicy lips from forming the words voodoo or poor or church group mission or I always thought Creole sounded like a pretty language. He says, "Can you speak it?" Holy firsts? It takes everything in my power not to tip him backward in a big dramatic movie kiss. Uh-huh, is all I manage to say with the little breath I have left. His eyes meet mine. Nice. Nice indeed, Simone. Go girl. So, that in that instance, humor, breaking the tension. It's building up. You're expecting the worst, and there it goes. Tension. Humor is also could be a surprise. Best kind of humor is surprises. So here we have a scene from Elijah of Buxton. It's going to illustrate the light and dark spaces. Can I just say that Christopher Paul Curtis, who wrote Elijah of Buxton, which is a series of books that are historical fiction. I worship at the altar of Christopher Paul Curtis. Like, he is brilliant at using humor to unpack thorny, scary issues. And there could be no scarier issue than issues like slavery. So here, to set the scene up for you, in a Canadian settlement of Americans who ran away from slavery, Elijah and company wander into the forbidden area of the woods where the whites live, and Elijah is disappointed with what he finds there. So, always told not to go into those parts of the woods. His parents always warned Elijah, but here he's going with a preacher who is an adult who's kind of like a shisty individual. No spoiler alert there. So here we go. This is some old-timey language here, so pardon me. I'd spend lots of time sneaking through the woods, mostly at night, but I didn't recognize the way the preacher started leading me. All I knowed for sure was that it was where me and Coot had been warned not to go, off toward the way where some of the white people that didn't like us lived. Pa told us it was way full up with black bears and bats and, worst of all, millions of rattling snakes. I sure was glad the preacher had his gun, 'cause, truth told, whilst I know I would have had no trouble chunking a rattling snake with my rocks, I can't say for sure I could stop one of those black bears. Me and preacher must have walked for a half hour, but I couldn't be sure. When you don't know where you're heading, time don't seem to run like it normal do. But with every step we took, I was getting more and more disappointed in this new area. From the way Pa had warned me, I'd always pictured these woods as having so many bears hanging off the trees that the sunlight would have been blocked off from hitting the ground. I'd always pictured that there'd be so many rattling snakes hissing and shaking in these parts that you'd go about and go near deaf from that racket they made. But we'd been walking a good long time, and there was still plenty of sunlight, and I hadn't heard rattle the first. We hadn't even seen one bat. So there you go. Like, with the humor, you get to know that parents had to tell these stories to their kids, to their black children. Black parents had to tell their black children in times like this, and even currently today, just to protect them. But of course, Elijah, with his huge imagination, thought it was so much, so much, like he conflated this so much in his head, and that's where the humor comes in. But in the process, it really drives home that point to you as a reader. I love it, love it, love it. And so finally, I'm going to share with you an excerpt from my short story, Voila. Voila appeared in an anthology called Open Mic, and it also appeared and was published in Scholastic Scope magazine. And so here we are with the social commentary this time. So, to set the scene, a girl accompanies her elderly relative to the doctors to translate for her, for this relative. But they are in for an unbelievably long wait for the doctor. So here goes. Go sit down, baby, Tara says, taking pity on me. We'll call your auntie's name, when the doctor is ready. I harumph to myself on my way to the empty seat next to Matan. When the doctor is ready, I could bet any money he wasn't even in. It never fails. Halfway through our wait, the top of the good doctor's ample-sized dome can be seen bobbing past the driveway-facing window. He thinks he's sneaking in, but his conspicuously big head always gives him away. Maybe it's because he serves the elderly. Or maybe he's really Superman in disguise, and there's always one too many emergencies going on at the local hospital. Whatever his story, Dr. Bighead's rarely in his office. Patients crowd the first floor of the converted old-time mansion that's rotting in the East Ward of our fair city, waiting. The one TV hanging precariously high in one corner of the waiting room is the waiting room's only timekeeper. Each program's theme song chimes the passing of yet another 30 minutes. From daytime talk shows to the evening news, they wait. Judge Judy's on. The large woman spread over 2 chairs mutters to no one in particular. Been here since Good Morning America. So there's that. Flubbed it a little bit there, but you get it. Social commentary, really my way of kind of getting back to those times where going to the ghetto doctor's office to translate, which I did as a kid, we'd wait upwards of 5 hours, no lie. And you always have a sense, even as a kid, of like, this ain't right, Other people don't. I'm sure other parts of town they're not dealing with stuff like this. So using the humor, using what I can in this story to just give the narrator that kind of like a little bit of a snarky, humorous voice where she's pointing out the doctor's big head and everything. It's still very accessible to the reader to understand. It adds an extra layer of understanding, and it stays in your mind. And so I hope this has been helpful to you, and I hope this stays in your mind a little bit as you continue reading and writing humor. And all of my solidarity is with you as we're humor writing, and essentially like doing that energy work and putting some light and levity into the world where we can, into our stories where we can. It's rewarding experience, and I hope this has been helpful, and I hope you find it rewarding too. Thank you.